your latest book, this Lost and Found. Now, this is a very interesting challenge that came into your life not that long ago. The challenge was mercifully provided by one of your, or perhaps your most important spiritual teacher, whose name is Bhagavan Bernie Madoff. He mercifully took away from you 30 years of savings, all their life's savings, to help you experience the essence of who you are.
Yes.
However, you did not immediately experience the essence of who you are.
I'd say that was an understatement.
And you describe it in the book, how it starts, and that's wonderful. I believe it's chapter 1 or 2, beginning, the incredible amount of the reaction and the fear that comes when you lose all your life's savings. And you describe what it did to your state of consciousness, wonderfully explained and illustrated. I don't know if you want to talk briefly about it.
Sure.
And then something happened.
Yes. For those few of you who might not know who Bernie Madoff is, he ran a Ponzi scheme and actually all over the world and ended up stealing $65 billion of people's money. And as my husband is very fond of saying when he tells his stories, and not all of it is mine. So we did have our life savings in there, and we got a phone call, or I got a phone call one day. My husband was away. We believed it was very safe. A friend of ours was friends with Bernie Madoff, whose father was friends with Bernie Madoff, and anybody could put, in our particular fund, anybody could put anywhere from $600 or $1,000 to whatever amount you had in this fund. And we just kept on putting all of our money in there because our friend had been in it for 30 years. And also, as my husband says, that you start believing in gravity when every time you throw a ball up in the air, it comes down every time for 30 years. So we absolutely believed it was safe. And then it wasn't. And then we got the phone call saying it was gone. And I was shocked and in terror, I think. First I was shocked and then hysterical. And then in terror, and then I called a couple of very dear friends and teachers who I would say, we've lost all our money, and this was very soon after the phone call, and two of them said to me, you've lost your money, but nothing of any value is gone. And I said in that moment to both of them, now is not the time to be spiritual. I was convinced, it was like, don't give me that. We've lost our money. What are we going to do? We're going to be homeless. We're going to be out on the street. And what are we going to eat? And it was such a panic. And I started very soon realizing that it was going to be unbearable to live inside my mind. I could not, absolutely could not live inside the mind that was telling me, what did you do? I can't believe you did that. What's the matter with you? How come you didn't diversify? Even a 4-year-old knows to diversify. And I started blaming, of course, everybody. And then myself. And the ranting and the raving was so intense that I understood pretty immediately, within a day, that unless I brought myself back to what I had, not what I had lost, to what I could find instead of the money that I couldn't, what was already here, which is that animating aliveness, or that indwelling aliveness that I've heard you speak of. Unless I could bring myself back moment to moment to moment, every single time my mind wandered, then I was going to be lost. I was going to be living in abject terror. When I wrote Lost and Found, and when I traveled around and went on tour about it, I found that talking about money was very difficult, not for me at that point, because I became so interested in money after this that I would talk to people in the grocery store. So, what do you think about money? And tell me about your relationship with money, and how much money do you make? And do you and your spouse talk about? I just became fascinated with it, and like I became fascinated with food, as a point of departure, so to speak, or as a doorway into what we believe about scarcity and deprivation and what we're allowed to have and be. And when I first started talking about food, which was in 1978, people didn't want to talk to me except for those people who were willing to talk to me. With the rollers in my hair, they were willing to talk to me, but most people, when I would say, it's not about willpower, and it's not about force and deprivation, it's about using it as a doorway into who you are, really. There was no, it's about willpower and it's about calories. And with money, I found that I almost had turned back the clock 30 years, and so that it was a similar, no, I'm not talking about money. Sort of like with me, there's spirituality and then there's money. So I'm wondering what you think about that, just in terms of why money is such a difficult subject, really, to bring. Why people are more willing to talk about their sex lives, and in great detail, mind you, and what they've eaten and not eaten, and binged and not beaten, including things like stealing food and all of that, rather than talk about money. So I'm curious about what you think about that.
Well, it is true that for many people, the mention of it can bring about an immediate loss of awareness, even in people who otherwise have already embraced awareness in many aspects of their lives. And still there remains that there's a fear that coagulates around that money idea, and that's the fear, I would say, of survival. And there is also an egoic trait that's one of the most essential traits of the ego, not enough. Not enough is one of the most deep-seated ego traits. Every ego has that. And for many people, the not enough refers to money. It could refer to many other things, not enough food, not enough whatever. The ego is never feels it has enough. And that particularly manifests in the area of money, because money can buy, is neutral, but it can become anything in the world of form almost. And so it triggers the insufficiency, the feeling of not enough of the ego.
Spirituality is fine, and then there's money.
Yes.
And also that awakening, so to speak, becoming fully alive to the aliveness was not possible for me in this lifetime. That's what I believed.
Yes.
I believed I could work at it, that I would always be sort of like a little busy beaver. I would be working at it and efforting at it, and I would be meditating, and even though I didn't really like meditating very much, I still wanted to be a good spiritual student. And so I'd keep on trying and trying, but that it wasn't, even though intellectually I heard, yes, of course, it's your true nature, I still believed, well, maybe it's not my true nature. Maybe it's everybody else's true nature, but it's not true nature because it's not really mine. And I think it took this to experience that aliveness, that indwelling aliveness is, if I'm not aware of it, it's just a bat of an eyelash away. And that it is possible for every human being. I always feel like if it's possible for me, it's possible for anybody. Because I feel like I've just about been as crazy as any of the people I've met who have come to my retreats and workshops for 30 years I've done it all. And so I feel like, okay then. All right then. What Eckhart has been saying is true. It's not just a line. It doesn't just sound pretty. It's true. Because here it is, in this moment, with no money, not a penny. Here it is.
Yes, I experience that on the park bench often. The intense happiness of simply the joy of being in that moment, where the mind, if it had come in, and occasionally it did, just briefly, it said, "What are you doing? And shouldn't you be looking for some work or do something?" But the thought didn't have any force behind it anymore. Right. So I don't know, it didn't come. I could have remained that, in that case I would have become quite dysfunctional and still be happy.
Yes.
But after a while then doing happened again. I was able to do and initiate things and respond to whatever the present moment brought, and then I became a normal person again, at least on the surface, on the outside.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Actually, my question has already been answered.
That often happens.
And I think one day we are going to come here, and once we're all in presence, we won't have any questions for you.
That's true. That would be wonderful.
And you're going to be out of business.
Yes. Yes, that would be wonderful.
So, actually, my question was, could you elaborate on ego versus healthy self-esteem?
Ah, yes. Okay. Eventually, what you call healthy self-esteem, which is a wonderful thing, eventually that is not enough. And as a human being evolves, that healthy self-esteem is no longer satisfying as you grow older, and is transcended, and what takes its place is healthy, no hyphen self-esteem. The self-esteem, of course, means that you are reasonably satisfied with who you are as a person and the achievements of the person, what the person can do, or what the person knows, or what the person possesses, and you compare what the person can do, abilities, what the person knows, knowledge, or what the person has in terms of possessions. You compare that with others, and you come out favorably. So either you can do more than somebody else or others, just feel better about yourself. I can do this, but they can't. I can, but you can't. Or you have more knowledge. Did you know that this in such and such is such and such a case? You didn't know that? Well, let me tell you. That feels good. You know more. These ignorant people, they don't know anything. Or you have more. How many bedrooms does your house have? 4? Well, we have 11. Do you have an advanced degree? No, I have 2 PhDs. And that's fine. It starts with a child already. It says, look what I can do. I can jump further than you. And that for the child, it's fine. There's no point in telling a child, don't do that, because your ego is arising. No, the child has to go through that. And it is better to have healthy self-esteem, as you describe it, as it's usually described, than extremely low self-esteem. I'm no good. Everybody's better than me. I have nothing. Life has treated me unfairly. There's a self-image there also, as there is a self-image in healthy self-esteem. One, of course, is much nicer than the other. It's more pleasant to live with healthy self-esteem than with a low self-esteem, or unhealthy self-esteem, one could call it. But they're both identification with some kind of form. And you compare the form of who I am with the form of others, and you are better, at least in one area, you must be. And that's satisfying, but you're trapped in form, and you're depending on, for your sense of value or worthiness, you're depending on, ultimately, to put it bluntly, others who have less or know less or can do less than you. And that's fine. Doesn't mean you shouldn't strive to do great things or to have things or to know things. But the question is, ultimately, is that a satisfying basis for your sense of who you are? And in the long term, it is not. It is not satisfying. That is why people who are maybe very happy with what they possess, after a while, there's an emptiness that comes, not the spiritual emptiness, a sense of emptiness of what's it all about. And even things you can do, a time may come when you can't do it anymore. Whatever it is that you do that's so great. Playing an instrument, the great pianist, wonderful, why not be a great pianist? But if you derive your sense of who you are from that, then one day you find arthritis in your fingers. And who are you now? Or the agility goes, it's not there anymore. Oh my God, suffering comes. Or you invent the greatest new computer, some computer, I don't know the expressions, but program or whatever it is, and everybody says this is the greatest ever, but 3 years later or 2 years, these things happen very quickly. Somebody else comes with makes yours obsolete, and then you have no new ideas, and there you sit completely devastated because you've become, from somebody great, you've become nobody. But it was all illusion. Because you derived your sense of who you are from something in the world of form, which is fleeting, not reliable, not solid, dreamlike. And so the true self-esteem comes from not identifying with form. Now, whether we even want to call that self-esteem, I don't know. The true sense of worthiness and of power, true power, comes when you realize the formless in yourself, that dimension, and that all power comes from that. But it's not, it goes far beyond the person that you are. And then you are rooted in the formless, so to speak, or you are it, and that there's enormous sense of worthiness in there, but it's not comparative. It's not more than. You see the same worthiness in everyone, even if they don't know it for themselves yet. So there is power, but not more than. There's just the power of life itself, and you know everybody is an expression of that, although they may not know it yet. Everybody. So this is, you transcend conventional self-esteem, and it doesn't mean you lose your sense of worth. It shifts into something much deeper. So every human really is. There may even be some children these days who don't need to go through the egoic stage anymore. That is possible. But traditionally, and humans had to go, many probably still have to go through the stage where they identify with form, develop some self-esteem, do something that you feel good about, you can do it, and then comes the time going beyond. Except perhaps, as I said, some advanced souls who may be coming into this world, already in this world as children, who don't even need to identify with that anymore. A question that comes from there also is, if a person has low self-esteem, in other words, a mental image of not good enough, then does that person have to go through the stage of healthy self-esteem before they can transcend it altogether? I don't know. I haven't tried it enough with enough people. It may well be that the unhealthy self-esteem, if it leads to a state of suffering, great suffering, you may be able to, with the help of a teacher, go from there to no self. Because the way from unhappiness or suffering to transcendence is easier than the way from superficial happiness to transcendence. Superficial happiness keeps you in the dream world for quite a while. It's not that bad, my life, I can't complain, it's not that bad, it's going okay. I'm quite happy, just got a promotion. I'm so happy I just got my annual bonus from my Wall Street bank. Great, I'm doing great. Yeah. So from there, the transcendence is not directly from Wall Street, probably not. But if you go from Wall Street to prison, then much easier. This ability to look at things or listen to things or with other senses, smell, taste, touch, as the awareness rather than the interpreting mind, practice that in your daily life. It's a primordial spiritual practice If that's your only spiritual practice, it would be quite enough. So, innocent perception, it requires awareness, it requires an alertness in the background of your perception. Without the alertness, thinking will always overpower you. The alertness keeps thinking at bay. You remember the story I wrote about in the A New Earth? It's an ancient Zen story where the disciple and the Zen master are walking on a long journey through the mountains. And then they stop for a little picnic. And then the disciple, who is still having problems understanding what Zen is all about, he's only been there for 10 years, he asks the master, I don't quite get it yet. How do I enter Zen? Meaning, how do I enter the state of consciousness that is Zen? How do I? And the master looks at him and says, can you hear the sound of that mountain stream? And the disciple says, no, I can't hear it. The master says, just see if you can listen, see if you can hear it. And this is the point of the master to the disciple, to become more alert. The master associates the alertness with the auditory perception there. So the alertness flows into the auditory perception. And as the master tells him, you have to listen more carefully to hear that mountain stream. And then the disciple, at that moment, the alertness, the awareness in the disciple rises, and he goes. And of course, at that very moment, while he's in that intense listening, he's no longer thinking or trying to figure out what Zen is all about. He's just... And then he can hear in the far distance, there's a tiny mountain stream that makes a sound. And suddenly he can hear it. And he says, yes, I can hear it. And the master says, that's it, enter Zen from there. Oh. This is a practical, to show by means of practical example what that means, that alertness. Jesus talks about it too. He said, if you be so awake as if you were, he gives the parable of a servant waiting for the master. He doesn't know when the master comes. He may come in very silently. So you have to be alert. Don't go to sleep. Be alert and wait for the master. So the servant is sitting in that house. The door, maybe in my version of the story, the servant is on the upper floor. And the master is could come in any moment. And the master is very quiet. So you go. So the servant basically would be in continuous presence. Otherwise he might miss the master. Again, it's an example to show what that state of consciousness is. Again, using the analogy with associating awareness with the auditory perception. You can associate it with other perceptions too, or with all perception, or with no perception. And there's no stress or strain in that alertness. There isn't a willfulness behind it. That's not it. You can't hold your breath and make yourself be more alert. I still can't hear the mountain stream. You have to. It's a relaxed alertness. That is one. I'll sometimes use the expression vibrational frequency, and there is a truth behind it. Whether or not it's scientific, I don't care. By the way, I can sense because I also experience fluctuations. There's always a certain alertness in the background, but sometimes there's an increase in alertness, and sometimes it recedes. It's in the background. The awareness. And then the awareness, the light gets lit like a dimmer switch. It goes psh. And then it goes psh. It's still there. According to the situation. No, the so-called enlightened state, which is a destiny of each human to reach, although many won't reach it in this lifetime, but that's okay. That would mean there's a continuous background awareness, Indian continuous. And many of you already have it sporadically, and there may be some of you who already have it continuously in the background. And the only reason why you're here because it's enjoyable. But there's no point in asking, when is it going to be continuous for me? Irrelevant question. The only true question is it there now? That's the only place where it can be, now. If it's not, whether it's going to be there 10 minutes from now, who knows? Is it going to be there next week when I get home? Who knows? But when you get home, it's now. So the only relevant question is, am I aware now? And if you even remember to ask that question, which is a powerful pointer to awareness, very easily you can step from the question, which is still a thought. I call it a pointer. Certain thoughts are pointers that point beyond thought. So that says, am I aware now? It's a powerful pointer. And after that, yes, that can immediately bring you to that heightened alertness. Am I aware now? Let me just check. And that checking creates a rise in the vibrational frequency. You can feel that. And you can observe, you can learn to observe in people. It's not judgmental. It's a simple fact. You can look at a person, and to some extent you can see what degree of awareness is there. There are many humans who might never have heard of any spiritual teaching who have some awareness in their life. They don't know what it is, but it's there. I can very often, I don't like to be stopped and recognized in the street all the time, but it does happen a lot. And when it happens, it's lovely. So it's a paradox. I try to wear sometimes sunglasses and a baseball cap. A funny incident, I was in a supermarket and I was wearing dark sunglasses and a baseball cap and just looking at the shelves. And a man came up to me and said, "Hi, Eckhart, may I shake your hands? Do people recognize you a lot?" Now, I am saying this is quite not infrequently. I know a few seconds, I look at a person a few seconds before they recognize me, I recognize them. I've never seen them before, but I recognize them. I know there's a fairly strong presence there, and then I know, oh, this person is going, and this is not a thought, it's just a realization, this person is going to recognize me. And most of the time I'm right. Now, if you rise above thinking, doesn't mean you'll never think again, but it means you're no longer in the grip of thinking. And most importantly, you no longer derive your sense of identity, your sense of who you are, from thought, the narrative of you, your life, me and my life. So where does your sense of identity then come from? Where does it arise? Let's do another little experiment. For a moment, let's say there is no past and future. You might have noticed I said, let's say or assume there is no past and future. The truth is there is no past or future, but I don't want to go that far. You might not believe me anymore. Let's assume that right now, in this moment, that you don't have a past and you don't have a future. You're just here. You're perceiving everything, but you don't remember your name. Well, you didn't remember it until this moment when I mentioned it. And you don't remember the stuff that happened in your past. But we don't need it right now. You know, if you need to go there, you can retrieve the files, the memory files. And let's say for a moment that you don't have a future. Or that the future doesn't exist. Or that you're going to die in 5 minutes. Oh my God. Okay, you don't have a future, and you don't have a past, you don't remember your email address or your name or your problems right now, because right now you're just here, perceiving. You're perceiving. What or who are you when you don't remember your past and think about your future, and there's just this left, just this. In fact, there's nothing to think about right now. You don't need to think. And yet, what's left of you when you're not thinking, when you're just here? Now, you cannot name it. There's only a sense, an strange sense of beingness or presence. And that is most essentially you. That is a deep I. That is more truly you than any memory, because you're not your memories. That is more truly you than the historical person. But what is that? That strange sense of there's a presence there, there is a beingness, but it doesn't have any content. There's just a space, there's just a still space. To the mind, it's insignificant. It says, okay, that's enough. I have too many problems to think about. I don't want to go there now. I don't have time. Maybe when I feel a little better, when I've solved my problems, then I can do this. No, you will never solve your problems. If you solve 2 problems, 3 more will creep up behind you. That's how life is. It's not meant to be free of challenges. It's meant to awaken you. And this is the possibility of awakening, is to realize this beingness. Now, beingness comes from the verb to be the most fundamental thing, to be. Now, what's the first person singular of to be? It is not I be. Strangely, you say I am. I am. Now, all you know when you're not thinking is that you are. That's beyond doubt. You can sense the presence that you are. And that is the realization of yourself, not as a person or as a form identity, but the realization of yourself as consciousness. In essence, who or what you are is consciousness, and it's not yours. You're a manifestation of universal, because only one consciousness that manifests in countless forms briefly. And if you can go there and be rooted in that and realize that is who you are beyond form. The analogy that works quite well that I usually use for this is, if you imagine yourself to be a ripple on the surface of the ocean. Let's say every human being here is a ripple on the surface of the ocean. Now, ripples are short-lived, but so are humans. A little bit longer than a ripple, but from a more universal perspective, a human life is a brief thing. It's a flicker, goes birth, old age, and death. So everywhere on the planet there are these flickers of consciousness, but it's the same consciousness continuously manifesting form. I am is the word. All you can say is I am, but you don't add anything, not this or that. I am. In the Old Testament, God is asked, who are you? And that's perhaps the most profound sentence in the Old Testament, is I am that I am, where God defines him, her, itself as the I am, as the essence identity of all forms. And also another beautiful sentence in the Old Testament, as you know, the Old Testament is the New Testament, the Bible is a mixed bag of fantastic things and other things. But I like to look for the jewels that are there. Another beautiful statement that points to all this is, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Now these words are all synonymous. Be refers to being. Still is the state of consciousness without thought, stillness. Being and stillness, the same thing. And know, there is a deep knowing in that. In fact, that is because that is the source of all intelligence. There's a deep knowing But from the point of view of the conceptual mind, it looks like unknowing. It looks like ignorance, because it's not knowing through concepts anymore. There's a deeper knowing, and this is where what we call wisdom arises, which is very different from intelligence, the IQ kind of intelligence. The wisdom that the world needs, not more intelligence, please, no, but wisdom that, yes, be still and know that I am. It is the I am of the I am of being God. Oh, here we come to a difficult word, but they're all synonymous. What is God then? I rarely talk about God because you can't really, it's so transcendent that whatever you say would be very limited. As you know, human language and human thought is relatively limited. Some of you are already advanced enough, there's enough presence power in you that you can actually, by choice, say, there's nothing to think about and I won't think for a while now. And then you can even do things in that state of complete inner alert stillness. Prepare a cup of tea, and every movement happens against a background of alert stillness. Walk from point A to point B, and every step happens against this background of alert stillness. Look around you, whatever it may be, in a room or outside, perceive everything with your senses, and all the sense perceptions happen against this background of alert stillness, without any mental commentary. And you know what you're looking at without imposing any mental label on it. When you look at a tree, you don't impose the label tree on it, but you know that you're looking at a manifestation of life. The moment you put a label on it, of course we need labels on a certain level, but we also need not to be trapped in the labels that we have given things. We need to be able to use the mental labels when they are needed, but to be entirely trapped in the mental labels that we've given to everything, that's a dreadful limitation. Because the tree everything is absolutely mysterious. Everything is miraculous and mysterious. And when you put a label on it, a mental label, you think you know what it is. But you don't. It's just a mental label. So to really get to an inner realization of a tree, for example, you have to let go of the labels. And then you can sense there's more to the tree than when you utter the word tree, than you think you know. But there's a depth to that. It's an alive being also. And I'm using just tree as an example. So to be able to, this is the practice, inviting presence, thoughtless awareness into your life as much as possible, and see how much more enjoyable things become, how you notice things around you that before were meaningless, you didn't ever look at them. You notice beauty in many places that would be called ordinary, not just beauty in things that are absolutely stand out, but beauty in seemingly unremarkable things, and aliveness in seemingly inanimate things. And that comes when you perceive the world against this background of alert inner stillness. And that is, in those times, the personality recedes. Occasionally, certain thoughts may come, and then they go away again, and then the spaciousness is back. So, you'll be amazed how, as you become more familiar with that state of alert stillness, how that changes how you experience life. So you no longer experience life only as that old person that you've been stuck with since you were born. That person is still, you honor that because that's your form identity, and that person can also improve. It can learn things. It can improve in many ways. It can play in the world of form, but then the wonderful thing is the formless self or no self and who you are as a person do not remain separate. There isn't that there are times when you are completely in the formless, still and alert, and then there are other times when you are involved in thinking. There's the possibility of bringing the two together, and that happens kind of naturally after a while as you invite the alert stillness into your life more often. Then you'll notice that even when you think, that you continue to be aware of the tiniest gaps in between your thoughts, like now. And then I speak again, and then there's another little gap. And in that you're aware of the gaps between thoughts, and you're aware, so to speak, also of a background to all thinking. That's the alert stillness is still there. And then you could engage in a discussion with someone without losing yourself in the stream of thinking, of mind, and without identifying with any mental position, which is seeking your identity to reinforce, to strengthen your identity by defending your mental position about something. You don't need it anymore because you realize no mental position is your true identity. You can still have mental positions, but without the self in them. So there's no longer a sense of me or self in your mental. Why not keep your opinions? Everybody has certain perspective on things. You have a certain perspective on whatever, politics, philosophy, spirituality. That's fine, but you're not looking for an identity anymore in being right about something. You can still put forward your viewpoint because you're in touch with a more essential identity, and that's the stillness behind your thinking and in between the thoughts. So you can sense an alertness even while you speak, in the background and in between. So the two dimensions come together, and so the way in which you use your mind changes. In fact, you're now able to use your mind, you as the consciousness. The mind is connected, linking into that deeper dimension of no thought, which is primordial intelligence. That's where all creative insight comes from. And then your mind becomes a much more helpful tool, and it can create, it can manifest things. But what it manifests comes from the consciousness, rather than a little person that thinks, I need to manifest this or that in order to be happy. And of course, once you have manifested it, you're happy for a little while, and then you're unhappy again, needing something else to manifest. And now I need this. Okay, I've got the house now. Now I need the relationship, and then I need that, and then I need to be recognized by people. There's no end to it. And the more you have achieved on the level of form, the more you realize that that's not it. So, the two dimensions of you, here we are primarily concerned with the formless dimension, because that's what spirituality is about. There are many other things where you can go to workshops to learn how to improve your form identity, how to strengthen that. You can do it, yeah. And that's fine too, that has its place also. You could go to that kind of workshop, as long as you are in touch with something deeper, you can try it. I'm still planning to have a joint event together with Tony Robbins. But my idea about it, I don't know if it will happen, is that we would both exchange our positions so that we are not in our comfort zone. He would be sitting in a chair, and I would be pacing up and down and gesticulate. And I wonder if that position would change our teachings. So we'll see. If you place excessive focus on the imperfection or areas of unconsciousness, you can no longer meet this person in a space of openness. I always start with not knowing what to say. That's the reason for the silence. And I recommend that you do that too before any creative activity or anything. Just become comfortable with not knowing, which means not thinking. Which does not mean you are going to sleep or unconscious, or it could happen that you suddenly drop below thinking. It happens to some people here. Now, normally to sit in front of an audience and not know what to say could be a nightmare. In fact, some people have nightmares of that kind. They're sitting somewhere and suddenly the curtain opens and it's a theater and they're all looking, I've forgotten my lines. Public speaking, for many people, is one of the most stressful things. And that's because they can't become comfortable with not knowing. The big difference is becoming comfortable with not knowing and feeling, I don't know, but I should know. That's very uncomfortable. Remember what the great philosopher Socrates said? They call me the wisest of all men, for the reason that I'm the only one who knows that he knows nothing. Nobody really has truly understood what he meant. People thought he was just pretending not to know. But I'm convinced that he was referring to the state of not knowing, which is also, of course, the state of not thinking, but awareness, out of which the whole philosophy emerged. The creative use of mind emerged out of the space of no mind. If you have no access to the space of no mind, then your mind will not be creative in any way. In other words, it's just, you can only have to rely on what you have acquired, and you will be moving within the conditioned realm of the mind. Whatever the mind has been conditioned by, that's all you have then. Another area where it's very helpful, this not knowing, is not to formulate conclusions on limited, insufficient evidence, to come to conclusions that become rigid thoughts in your mind concerning, for example, other people or yourself, or what you call your life. Such as, for example, let's say you have a relationship, an intimate relationship, then he or she betrays you in the conventional narrative, and then you immediately, the mind jumps to this conclusion: I'm never going to trust any woman or man again. Never. That's you've just would have constructed a dreadful prison for yourself. So you have a thought that suddenly dominates your mind. In order to I'm not going to suffer again in that way. This is no more. These conclusions can become self-made prisons, and then you walk in and you shut the door, and there you are, stuck in that mind pattern, never again being able to relate openly to a man or a woman. And then you've other weird conclusions that people arrive at. Some of them are so-called prejudices and so on. They're very rigid mental formations that deprive you of openness towards reality. So it's good to be, with relation to other people, also frequently not to be very careful with formulating conclusions about other people, individuals or groups of people. Remain as much as possible in the state of not knowing conceptually, and yet there is a deep knowing there, but it's not a knowing that creates separation between you and the other. So it's easy to find imperfections in people when you start working with them or living with them. And if you place excessive focus on the imperfection or areas of unconsciousness, then that can obliterate the totality of that person. For example, let's say somebody lies to you about something, for whatever people lie for different reasons, maybe even not to hurt you or whatever, who knows what the reason is. And then you find out, and then you say, oh, he's a liar. I know what kind of a person that is now. He's a liar. He lied to me, to me. Of course, that makes it much worse than me. And once you've formulated an opinion or a judgment of that kind, you can no longer meet this person in a space of openness, because immediately the judgment you formulated is there between you and you relate. Becomes part of the screen of conceptualization through which you then relate to that person. Now, if you formulate a judgment about an entire group of people, a political group of people, a religious group of people, all, whatever they are like that, all, well, then when you meet an individual representative of that group, you will no longer be able to meet him or her because you're meeting your mental image that you have created. So the true meeting is no longer possible. Very dangerous traps in your mind, created by your mind, by unconscious mental activity. What is conventionally called, which is fashionable these days, identity politics and stuff like that is also dangerous, because you have entire groups of people, and anybody who belongs to that group, you don't no longer look at the individual human being. You say, anybody who belongs to this group is like that. It could be a political, racial group, or whatever it may be. So this is all to do with forming mental screens so that make communication almost impossible, true communication.